go ahead and get started. Commissioner Cranford is not able to be here today. He's requested to be excused. He's got vertigo, so hold him in your prayers if you don't know him. Let's go ahead and stand for the invocation and pledge allegiance.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, Lord, we ask you, Lord, to be with us tonight, Lord, to help us make good decisions and the best decisions for this family and community. Lord, we just ask you to guide us and protect us.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're going to start with the approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Make that motion.
Okay, we're going to do the public hearing. Jill Wood, can you go ahead and please come forward?
This past year, Ramseur considered annexing 122 Reed Creek Road. And we had felt like we had taken care of everything. There's been a transition between one clerk to a new clerk. And all of this occurred before our new clerk came to work here. But it appears that we've not been able to locate the affidavit for the notification on the annexation. So the attorney has advised that we consider that again tonight with the cleaning up the paperwork. So if there's anyone here that would like to speak.
Is there anyone here that would like to speak on the annexation of 122 Reed Creek Road? In favor or against?
Madam Mayor, thank you. My name is Sandra
Can you
Bullen.
please?
Yes. Well, do I have to talk loud? My name is Sandra Bullen, and I live at the end of Reed Creek, just on Sheet, 1 block over. And I come past there every time I go home. And I think it might be pertinent and in the town's interest to try to get the county to clean that current dump site up before the town annexes that and it becomes a town's problem. There are about 5 large debris piles there, and at some point somebody's going to have to clean it up. And if it's currently in the county, I think they'd be better equipped to better afford to clean it up than I am to put in and get it.
Is there anyone else? Jill, would you like to comment on that?
Well, as you are all aware, when a violation occurs, it takes sometimes a month, even can roll into 1 to 2 years to clean up a violation. So I believe that those particular, the dumping of some building materials occurred back behind this property after the fact that Ramseur was annexing the property. And so I feel like that we could postpone things. However, what the county would do is go into having the code enforcement officer come out, issue notice of violation. That we'll go through those processes, start issuing citations, and then if the property owner did not take care of it, they would take the property owner to court. It's basically the same kind of steps that we have. However, in this particular instance, the property owner found the dump materials on his property and notified Ramseur Police Department. And the Ramseur Police Department has been working with the property owner to get the violators to clean the dump up, so the dump materials up. So that would be up to the board's decision to make. I do believe that it is a situation that it would postpone the annexation of the property for quite some time if we did that.
Anyone else have anything they'd like to say?
Ms. Wood's correct, we have been working with the landowner and the person who dumped it, we found out who that was. However, he's been less than helpful. So it's probably gonna fall back on the landowner, where he's gonna charge his him and a couple of his employees a felony dumping, is probably what we're gonna do. Because he's been putting us off since before Christmas. I can't find anybody to do it before Christmas, can't find anybody to do it before Christmas. Well, we're here on February 30th. Been about long enough, and the cleanup's probably gonna fall back on the landowner, and we'll probably have to charge him the other guy. So if that's any, just food for thought, yeah, I'll let you know where we're at.
Is there an estimate about how much debris is there?
I believe I've been told it's quite a bit, 5 to 6 truckloads.
You're probably looking at 6 tons at least.
Yeah, he's right, about 6 to 8 tons of debris.
And I can tell you that if Ramseur, if it is in Ramseur jurisdiction, then the police is able to use police powers to abate the nuisance, whereas in the county's jurisdiction, the sheriff's department doesn't get involved in the situation.
So do we give him a deadline to, before we charge him for litter? Clean up mess up.
The property
After we
owner,
annex them.
we can, the property owner, the police department, the zoning can go after the property owner. The police department can go after the individual that dumped the material. Yep. I'm not sure that it could expedite the process or if you can put it off, and I'm not sure if you're gonna get it cleaned up. I don't believe the county is gonna be able to take care of getting it cleaned up
Any
as quickly
faster
as
than
the
we are.
town would be able to. And we can go after the property owner, and he is wanting permits to be able to open that establishment up. He's gonna be asking the town to complete the paperwork for him to be able to have an ABC license. He's the property owner that I'm sure the town will have more leverage to have the property clean than the county will.
Is it the same person that was here before?
Yes.
Because he was
Yes,
interested in purchasing it then.
he is the property owner, and the gentleman that will be operating the establishment were both here. And the same property owner, same thing for property.
Anybody else have anything? If no one else would like to be heard, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing.
Please use your microphones.
We've already been reminded one time. All right, we'll move to the approval of the agenda.
Make that motion, approve the agenda.
We have a first and a second. Any discussion? All in favor? The consent agenda. We're going to be approving the minutes for the pre-agenda meeting for January 21st, the closed session for January 21st, the police and fire report. Has everybody had an opportunity to look at that? I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Public comment period. No one has signed up for public comment. Old business. We're going to start with the citywide speed limit. Commissioner Parrish.
I've been checking on some prices for the speed limit signs. They can be anywhere from $25 to $100 a piece. Recommending the starting sections of the town. I think this is something I've seen a lot of conversation about residential areas being too fast, and I think this is something that we should look at. I think Jim said that some of the streets don't have anything posted on it, correct? Some of the streets don't have signs. So I make a motion that we start changing all city streets that are owned by the city to a 25 mile per hour zone in sections.
phases,
Yeah, basically,
and that's all city street.
I'll see.
Is there a second on that motion?
I second.
Any discussion?
What would the money come from?
You can take that out of power bill. Yes, he's on that, $45 to $50 sign, county posted on. And our sign's right there,
A lot of these updates.
there'll be updated sign.
Any other discussion? All in favor? No one is opposed. We'll move to the smoking tobacco-free policy. Commissioner Parrish?
As you know, we talked the last couple of months about the smoking policy for the town and, the town properties. Everybody's got the draft copy that Quinn gave us tonight. If you'll go out the back of our building back here, you'll see numerous cigarette butts on the ground. You go to the city parks, you'll see cigarette butts in the sand pits where the kids play all over the parking lot. And I make a motion we adopt this policy.
Got a motion to adopt the smoking tobacco-free policy. Is there a second on that motion?
I second that motion.
Any discussion?
When I was very interested in the police department,
As far as like on the water, I don't think we're gonna be able to control what's going on in the water. We don't use the water anyway. I don't foresee the police getting in the boat going upstream looking for smokers. As far as the police department, we just, like for the informant, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
I'm okay with the informant, if it's going to help the police department, but it just has to be on the case to case. And if everybody's all right.
So we'll need to establish a policy for the police department for smoking.
For informant. If you need to reflect that there's going to be an exception to the ordinance, you're smoking. You need to accept what you accept.
We need to set forth the exception.
To this ordinance, you got a motion, and second, approve, right? During discussion, now you're asking, you might want to say a friendly amendment to allow exception, to allow, the exceptions to, I just need to talk about it. Amend my motion to add the exception. Why don't you withdraw your motion? I'll withdraw the motion. I make a motion to accept this ordinance here with the exception of allowing the police to have their informants possibly behind the police department to smoke if they are going to give information to a case, and with the exception of with the voters upstream, we're not going to be controlling that area for that reason.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. Any more discussion? All in favor? No one is opposed. The beer garden ordinance.
Mr. Wilhoit's office got it, the beer ordinance typed up to, for our looking over an approval. If everybody has time to look over it.
Okay, so what we're looking at is a proposed ordinance to possess, display, or consumption of alcoholic beverages. It's a pretty in-depth ordinance that was prepared by Attorney Wilhoit's office.
I make a motion with one amendment to what you've got in your hands on the first page under 1 where it says town-owned building, and I'd like to add and real property It covers the parking lot area.
That's between buildings and a fund.
And all real property.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor to adopt this ordinance. Is there a second?
I'll second.
First and second, any discussion?
Most of you don't know, if the beer garden, if someone applies for the beer garden, in our ordinance, it's pretty strict on this beer garden. It will require the organization be co-sponsored with the town, but it also require that organization to hire a police officer to be on standby at the beer garden. So that organization will be paying them their off-duty rate. So if anybody was concerned about that, we have them in other cities, in Ashboro and other cities, and they don't have problems with that.
Combined with the application goes through.
And the application will go through the police department for them to get approved.
Any other discussion? All in favor? No one opposed. Any further old business or comment? We'll move to new business. At this time, we're gonna, give our town clerk the oath of office. We failed to do that back in December when she was, hired, so we're gonna take a few moments to do that.
You, Gwendolyn French. I, Gwendolyn French. Do solemnly swear. Do solemnly swear. That you will support and maintain the Constitution and laws of the United States. That I will support and maintain the Constitution and the laws of the United States. And the Constitution and laws of North Carolina. Not inconsistent therewith. And that you will faithfully. And impartially discharge. And execute your duties. Of your office as town clerk. According to the best of your skill. And ability. According to the law, so help you God.
Okay, next on our list is the audit presentation.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners, for having me tonight. I am here to present the audit report and the financial statements for the town for the fiscal year ended June 30th of 2019. I think you should all have a copy with you. I'm going to try to cover this fairly quickly, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have at the end. If you'll flip to page 1. Pages 1 through goes all the way to 4 is the audit report. I'm not going to read the whole report. The most relevant paragraph is on page 2. In the middle of the page, the opinion paragraph. I will read that. It says, in my opinion, based on my audit and the report, the other audited financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business type activities, discretely presented component unit, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information for the town as of June 30, 2019, and the respective changes in financial position and cash flows, where appropriate thereof, and the respective budgetary comparison for the general fund for the year that ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. This is what's called an unmodified opinion in the accounting world, or a clean opinion. Meaning that I believe the financial statements as presented are materially correct. You'll flip to page 5. This begins the management's discussion and analysis, which is a presentation by the management of the town to the readers of the financial statements in terms of the financial position and any other information. All the numbers within this section of the financial statements are also in the financial statement portion, so I'm not going to cover a whole lot within here. I will cover on the first page, on page 5, the fourth bullet point down. At the end of the current fiscal year, unassigned fund balance in the general fund was $665,795, which is roughly 41.94% of total general fund expenditures and transfers out for the fiscal year. The state recommends that number be at least 8%, that percentage there. It's not a mandate, but it's recommended. So you are well above that. If you'll flip to page 15, starting there begins the actual financial statement portion of the report. This page and page 16 are the statement of net position, which reflects your total assets, deferred outflows of resources, liabilities, deferred inflows of resources, and net position of the town. This is on the full accrual basis, meaning receivables and payables and other things that are not necessarily all cash related are recorded in here. I'm not going to point out a whole lot because most of these numbers are also in the back. But I will point out at the bottom of page 15 under long-term liabilities, there is two lines there. The first line is net pension liability, and the second line is total pension liability. These are liabilities that are actuarially accrued numbers, meaning an actuary comes up with these figures and provides those to us as the auditor, and we book these liabilities on your books on the full accrual basis. These are related to the local government employees retirement system and the law enforcement officer special separation allowance. These are the actuarially projected liabilities for the town at a point in time as of June 30th, 2019. It's not necessarily a liability you can pay right now or up front. It will eventually, in theory, be paid by the town over time by increases in rates or other things that the retirement system as a whole determines is necessary. But that is basically your portion of the liability for the pension fund for the entire state. I want to point that out because it was new last year, and this is the second year that we've had to report this. But it is a number that is not necessarily generated by activity of the town. It's provided to us by the actuary. If you flip to page 18, this is the balance sheet for the governmental funds. So it covers the major fund, which is the general fund, is the first column of numbers. The second fund is the other non-major funds, and the total in the right-hand column. I'll just point out a few things. The cash and cash equivalents, the first line of numbers there. The general fund is $1,094,860. Restricted cash is the second line, $253,094. There are some receivables related to taxes and other accounts receivable and amounts due from other governments related to sales tax and other taxes collected by the state. Liabilities, moving on down, the accounts payable at the end of the year, $39,661 for smaller amounts due to other funds, as well as some deferred inflows, which is essentially a deferred revenue type account. And then the last section of numbers there about the middle of the page is fund balances. So these reflect your restrictions, any restrictions on your fund balances, which are stabilization by state statute, which is a state mandated restriction, and then the PAL bill monies, at the end of the year, 208,715. There were some smaller restrictions for economic development and public safety, which is a debt service restriction for 43,988. There is an assigned amount for subsequent years' expenditures, which is amounts that you've appropriated in the subsequent year's budget. And then the unassigned fund balance, which is essentially the amount of fund balance that has no restriction on it, is $665,795. The same number I mentioned earlier. That's all in the general fund only. First column. I won't cover all the detail on the non-major funds. There's a lot more detail on the back and some of the schedules, and I'll point out those if you want to reference those in just a minute. If you flip to page 19, this statement reflects your revenues and expenditures for the governmental funds. So the general fund, again, is in the first column on the left. These are summaries, so there's detail in the back, but this is the summaries by revenues. You got your ad valorem taxes, your unrestricted intergovernmental, which would be things like sales and franchise taxes. Restricted intergovernmental, which is primarily the PAL bill monies, and some other smaller things, including sales and services. And then your total revenues, $1,459,017. That's in the general fund. You can see your expenditures broken out by functions of general government, public safety, transportation, environmental protection, and cultural and recreational. Total expenditures for the year, $1,587,343, for a net expenditures in excess of revenues of $128,326. If you flip to page 22, this is the statement of net position for the proprietary fund, the water and sewer. This is on the full accrual basis, so there are receivables, and those amounts are factored in here. But the cash and cash equivalents, the first line of numbers, $1,437,175. For accounts receivable, $125,685. That's related to the water and sewer fund. Some inventories. Then the second section is your non-current assets. That includes restricted cash as well as your fixed assets, your capital assets, which are your historical cost of your systems and other assets within the fund, less any accumulated depreciation. There are schedules in the notes that back up all that, and I'll show those to you in a minute. About halfway down the page begins the liabilities, which are some accounts payable and other debt within the fund. The water and sewer fund does also incur a net pension liability related to the amounts I talked about earlier related to the pension system. And then at the very bottom, your total net position, $7,725,988. That does include all your assets, not cash only. And your unrestricted net position, the next line up, $1,586,577. Page 23 reflects the revenues and expenses within the water and sewer fund. This is summarized, but I won't cover all of it in detail except your total operating revenues, $1,180,088. Your total operating expenses, $1,028,608, for a positive operating income of $151,480. I will point out, under operating expenses, about a third of the way down the page, the third line down, underneath that says depreciation. That total is $270,794. That's a non-cash deduction item expense. That's not actually cash, it's just a historical cost of your assets, we're depreciating those over time. Try to reflect the aging. Starting on page 25. This begins the notes section. So this section goes into much more detail in regards to the accounting policies of the town, which are required by generally accepted accounting principles. Goes into the detail of the funds. I'm not going to cover or read all of these. If you have any specific questions on any of this, I'd be glad to answer it. I'm just going to point out a few things for your reference. On page 30, the middle of the page has a little more detail in terms of your restricted cash. It's cash that's restricted by purpose within the governmental activities and the business type activities. The bulk of that relates to the PAL bill and then the if you flip to page 37, the bottom chart on 37 and then the chart at the end of 38, these reflect your capital assets. All these numbers tie back to the balance sheets that I showed you earlier. But this is all, the beginning column of numbers is your historical cost plus any increases, additions, capital outlay or purchases during the year, and less any accumulated depreciation related to each section of asset. The page 37 is the governmental activities. Page 38 is the water and sewer fund. Starting on page 40, there's lots of detail in regards to the pension plan obligations that I was mentioning earlier, related to the local government employees retirement system and the law enforcement's separation allowance. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail. All these numbers are provided by an actuary who does their own separate study of the fund and gives us the results. I'll just point out on page 45, the discount rate that the actuaries used to determine your liability was 7%. There's a sensitivity analysis schedule. The numbers part on page 45, about 2/3 of the way down. That reflects if they would have used a 6% rate or an 8% rate, how much that would have changed. So the asset that you're reporting was $121,938, the middle number. If they would have used 1% less, you could have reported a liability of $292,907. If they used 1% more, you'd actually reported a net asset of $20,925. I'd like to show you that just so you can see how much 1 percentage point can sway that liability one way or another. That same schedule for the law enforcement's separation allowance is on page 48 at the bottom. It doesn't swing quite as much. It's a little bit more predictable. You can see how that would change had they chosen a different rate. On page 53, there's some more detail there in regards to the long-term debt. It's on page 53 and 54. on page 56. The schedule at the bottom has detail on the general fund balance and the restrictions. All these numbers match what I mentioned earlier, but there's a separate schedule in the back just to report the restrictions on the general fund balance. That covers the bulk of the notes. Starting on page 59, I'm going through page 62. There's some detailed activity on those pension liabilities, and it has quite a bit of historical data, 6 years, the current year, and then 5 years prior. If you want to compare the second line on page 59, the second line down, that reflects your portion of the net pension liability and how that number has changed since all the way back to 2014. That number is based on investment earnings within the pension funds as well as projected lives of the participants and a lot of other factors that the actuaries go into. But just so you can see how that number can change from year to year. And then starting on page 63. These schedules are go into much more detail in regards to the revenues and expenditures of the general fund and all the other funds. I'm not going to go over each line. All the summary information has already been presented prior. This is the detail in terms of what makes up some of those numbers. That detail goes all the way through schedule 6, which is on page 71. That schedule is for the water and sewer fund. And that is on the modified cash basis. So there are no accruals related to this for the water and sewer fund. And then on page 73, there is a schedule of ad valorem taxes receivable. Your property taxes receivable by fiscal year for the prior 10 years. The total receivable is $12,907. That includes again 10 years of activity. And schedule 8, the next page, is an analysis of your current tax levy. That's only the current year. And the bottom line there shows your collection percentage for property taxes. So your total, including real property and motor vehicles, is 99.29%. Your total for real property is 99.24%, and your total for motor vehicles is 100% collection. The state average, I believe, is 98.6, so you're a little bit above that. Then page 75 and on, in the schedule section is just some more detail in regards to the tax levy. That's the bulk of the financial statements in the audit report. I'd like to answer any questions if there are any. If I haven't bored you to death.
Does the board have any questions?
Would you say the town's in pretty good financial shape?
Yeah, I try to be careful about giving my opinion on the financial position, but I would say given we are reporting on historical numbers, but given the amount of unassigned fund balance, I think it's well above what the state recommends in the general fund, I think that's in good financial position to me. I think the water and sewer fund is in similar.
Any other questions? Anybody have any questions for the item?
Thank you very much. I'm gonna slide out.
I can understand. Okay, next we go to planning and zoning recommendations for amendment. Jill.
If the board wanna consider the annexation tonight, or
So here's, just so I'm clear on this, what you said that we're missing that you can't find, that needs to go out before we can approve it, or no?
no, that has been ran, it was a legal notification.
Right.
And we did not, the clerk had no record of the affidavit.
That was on January 25th, we ran that?
Wednesday.
21st?
Yeah, I do have an affidavit. We'll get the affidavit.
We can move forward on that if the board is comfortable with that. The issue of the debris, is that causing a concern for any of the board members that you want to wait? Or,
I mean, I feel like Ramseur is already doing everything with it anyway, as far as what I know about it, what I've been informed about it. I don't know what postponing you can do, other than just postpone it.
the tax revenue from the annexation will be substantial? You want to go ahead and move forward on it?
I'll make a motion to move forward with the annexation.
But we need to amend the agenda first.
I'll make a motion to move for the consideration and annexation of 123.
Second.
So the motion on the floor is to amend the agenda to add the annexation of Reed Creek Road. We have a first and a second, any discussion? All in favor? No one is opposed. Okay?
Is it the pleasure of the board to zone the property business? Yes.
Yeah, we just voted on amending the agenda. No, that has to be.
So I need a motion on the approval of the annexation.
I'll make a motion to approve the annexation for 123 Reed Creek Road. I second that motion.
We have a first and a second, any discussion?
Do you need to amend that to include it to be zone business? Or is that a separate thing?
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? No one is opposed. Okay, then, the zoning of the property,
I've prepared for you a new consistency determination and finding reasonableness in public interest statement, and also the order approving special use fit for the 3 separate businesses that was heard in public hearing last year, and it was advertised, but we're doing this just to make sure that everything, all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed.
you have
I'm gonna-
consistent.
And that for you. This is the statement for the rezoning, or the zoning of the property, and that's the statement for the special use.
Okay, so I should read this.
I don't think so, that you have to read through it, you can accept it as presented tonight.
Okay, so we have consistency determination and finding of reasonableness and public interest for Rama LLC rezoning request. It's the pleasure of the board to adopt this consistency determination.
Make a motion to adopt. Determination.
And finding
Finding the reasonability. Reason. Above.
So we have a motion, do I have a second?
I second that.
We have a first and a second, any discussion? All in favor? Okay, and then we need the order approving special use permit. I have a motion on that.
I make a motion to approve the order approving special use permit.
We have a first, we have a second.
Second that motion.
We have a first and a second, any discussion? All in favor? Yes.
Okay. Tonight, I have on the agenda for amendment concerning some recommendations to amend the zoning ordinance to include 2 new special uses, one being electronic gaming establishments and the other being an off-premise billboard sign. And basically the electronic gaming operations, the definition would be any business enterprise, whether as a primary or an accessory use, where persons utilize electronic machines, including but not limited to computers and gaming terminals, to conduct games of chance, including sweepstakes, internet cafes, and internet business centers, and where cash, merchandise, or other items of value are redeemed or otherwise distributed, whether or not the value of such distribution is determined by electronic games played or by predetermined odds. This does not include any lottery approved by the state of North Carolina. Basically, the requirements would be that no electronic gaming establishment shall be located within 500 feet of a church, school, daycare, community center, or any residential zoning district as measured from the property line, nor shall any electronic gaming establishment be located within 500 feet of any other such use. The activities taking place on the premises shall be confined to the area inside the structure and shall not be visible from the street right of way. No outdoor loitering shall be permitted. Neon or flashing lights or fluttering devices, including spot or floodlights, designed and used to attract attention, are not permitted. And then there's some signage regulations there on the size of the sign that would be permitted on the property, and delineation of such sign. There are parking requirements, plan requirements that include hours of operation to ensure compatibility to neighboring businesses, and sound regulations. Amplification of sound directed outside of the building used by the establishment is not permitted. That's basically a review of electronic gaming establishments.
What was it before, 1,000 people?
Well, I recommended to the planning board that it be 1,000 feet, and the planning board reduced that to 500. But before, there have been no specific regulations within your zoning for electronic gaming operations. So this board has the ability to make any changes on what recommendation has come before you tonight from the planning board, or this board could vote to not amend your zoning ordinance. Now, tonight, I'm not asking for you to vote one way or the other, this is just basically information for you to be able to consider. And, I will be asking this board to set a public hearing for this consideration.
I would like to say that, some information I received, I would like to see that fee changed to 1,000. I don't know if the rest of the board is aware of this, but if say the police department is having issues with one of our gaming establishments, they have to call ALE in to help us with that gaming establishment. If there's seizure of any equipment, computers, electronic games, cash registers, cash, anything, it has to be stored. The responsibility goes back on the town to pay for that storage. We can put it in a regular storage unit, and if anything's damaged, we're responsible. So they're recommending putting in a climate storage unit. Also, that property owner or the owner of the business can take us to court in litigation, and we're looking at a lot of money in litigation. So I would personally, on that aspect, protect the town from litigation and having to store equipment and knowing our budget, I would like to see it move back to 1,000 feet. And I also like to see church, keep the church in there, but add chapel also.
Can you make that motion?
We're not making any
Okay,
motions
okay,
tonight, that'll be
okay.
after the public hearing process is set up. I think Commissioner Parrish is trying to make sure that each one of you saw his, that he gave his point of view to you on the information he received.
Some other small towns have ran into some issues with the storage, and it's costing a lot of money. That comes out of our budget. As most of you know, we don't have, the police department doesn't have anything budgeted if that happens. So we would have to pay that, and then litigation, everybody knows how litigation goes.
Thank you. Now, county DA's office prosecute if they have evidence of wrongdoing in operation. As opposed to on civil rights, and most cities are now, they're going, they're using criminal prosecution, and, they did that in Trinity, another city. They received a conviction, like a felony conviction in one of them.
And in defense of the planning board's recommendation, that information was not made available to the planning board, and so that was not something that they considered in making the determination of the setback.
I just have a question,
Yes.
is there an ordinance on the number of gaming establishments that can be within proximity of each other?
For this particular one, what we're proposing tonight to you does state here that they would have to be, there would be 1,000 linear feet distance from one to another.
So like within a, I guess I don't know if I'm asking it right, but like within the town, is there a limit on how many of these facilities there can be?
Well, in Ramseur, there is just certain areas that have business zone properties, or industrial zone properties. And, this particular, the signage is a special use for a special use district in an industrial. The gaming establishments is for a special use permit allowance in a business zoning district. The majority of the business zoning districts lie along Highway 64, and there are some along Highway 22, and then of course our downtown area. Now the downtown overlay would not permit it within the downtown overlay district. So basically you're looking at these being able to locate along Highway 64 or possibly Highway 22. That's where the majority of them would be. So when you're looking at a distance of 1,000 feet, you can just imagine how close or how many could actually be just by looking at those two different highways. And of course, you as a board would, the special use application would come to you, and you could review those, and there are 4 separate tests that each special use is required to meet before you even approve the special use permit. So it will limit the location of these types of establishments.
I noticed on here where it says community center, but it doesn't say nursing home. Is that something that we might want to consider?
Well, I believe we have one nursing home facility here in Ramseur, and the majority of those, it's located and is joined basically all the way around by residential property, and this would not permit one on a residential district, or within a residential zoning district.
Any other questions? So we need to go ahead and set a public hearing?
Yes, for both this and the billboard sign. If the board so chooses. Okay, so we'll schedule it for March.
Make a motion to schedule these public hearings for our March meeting.
We have a first and a second, any discussion? All in favor? Do you want to review the billboard, or?
If the board would like me to go through them, I can. I believe they're, the billboards, we have had some inquiries requesting some billboard locations in Ramseur. And this that has been put before you is recommendations that the planning board and I have worked together to accomplish. Now, with billboards, I did check the communities that, basically this would be along Highway 64 or Highway 22, it possibly could be. However, I checked the communities along Highway 64, Siler City, and Asheboro, and of course the Randolph County community area to see what they are doing with billboard signs. And the city of Asheboro requires a special use permit. The city of Siler City does not permit it within their town limits. And the county permits them outright with certain standards, basically 1,000 feet radius around a billboard sign, and they have to be located within an industrial or commercial district. But they're permitted outright if they are, if they can meet those standards. I felt that probably that it would be best for us to go in the same direction as the majority, where I'm seeing Randolph County go and the city of Asheboro. And so that's why the planning board and I looked at this and felt that the town should require a special use permit for this. But there are setback requirements here, 1,000 feet from one to another. It would be required to be located in an industrial zoning district. There are size requirements. The billboard sign face cannot exceed 300 square feet. There are those type of, I could read all the way through them if you'd like me to, but I believe that pretty much is the standards here. It also shall not exceed 35 feet in height. So, but if this board would like the opportunity to take this next month and review through this and see if you're comfortable with this, if you have either one of these, excuse me, if you have any questions, or I can work with you on any of this, I'll be glad to do so. But I feel like the planning board has done their due diligence in preparing their recommendations for you.
Anybody have any questions for the board?
I have one more thing that I'd like to explain to this board tonight. And we talked about it a little bit last month, but the state legislature has passed a new comprehensive rewrite of the development regulation statute. The new Chapter 160D of the North Carolina General Statutes consolidates current city and county enabling statutes now in Chapters 153A and 160A into a single unified chapter and places these statutes into a more logical, coherent organization. Provisions that affect all development regulations, such as definitions and provisions of moratoria, vested rights, and conflicts of interest are placed together in one article, followed by articles that address geographic jurisdiction, creation and duties of boards, administration of regulations, the process for adoption and amendment of regulations, and judicial review of regulations. There are also detailed articles for major functions, including planning, zoning, subdivision, building and housing codes, environmental regulation, historic preservation, and community development. In order to provide time for the development, considerations, and adoption of necessary amendments to conform local ordinances to this new law, Chapter 160D is not effective until January 1, 2021. All city and county zoning, subdivision, and other development regulations will need to be updated by that date to conform to the new law. This new law also requires local governments that have zoning and subdivision regulations to have a land development plan in place by July 1, 2022, and local governments must reasonably maintain their plan. As you're aware, Ramseur does have a land development plan. However, this plan was adopted in March of 2003, and this new law will require the plan to be updated. Due to the length and complexity of Chapter 160D changes, the UNC School of Government has published a book, size book here.
We all have to read that, right?
And yeah, and they have created training modules, and they also are hosting 160D workshops across the state. Now, this is a pretty big deal because this is when new laws come in place every single year. This much is not normally prepared for it, for these new laws. Your attorney is handed information and he reviews it, but this is a very expensive rewrite. It's basically taken land development regulations, the city to do it under these general statutes apply to cities, and these general statutes apply to the county. Well, what they have done is they've rewritten it, and they have combined them all together.
They took 160A, which is municipality, and 153 or county, and they put it in that place. It was one wonderful document that they have over 550, 600 towns and cities that are going to have to incorporate it in their zoning law. I don't believe this was a mandate from the cities, and I don't believe it was a mandate from the county, but it was first, I believe, to the legislature and other drafters of it, which did include opinions from the school government. And unfortunately, they've established a deadline, which I think is a little unreasonable, of January 1st of next year, simply because most towns and cities in this wonderful state don't have zoning departments like Charlotte, Greensboro, Raleigh, Winston, and so on. They don't have the budget for that. Yet they put the same requirements on Ramseur and on Liberty and Staley and Small Seagrove as they have Charlotte and Raleigh.
You know if there's going to be any type of assistance on that?
There'd be none.
Good luck.
No, the state has not allocated any. I have watched through all the modules, and I did register and attended one of the workshops on January the 28th at the Piedmont Tribe Regional Council in Kernersville, and was informed by David Owens from the UNC School of Government that the state is not allocated any assistance for you to take care of this. But let me make one addition. Your attorney here is telling you zoning, but it's not just zoning. It will be your zoning, your subdivision, your watershed, your floodplain, your land development plan. It's all land development ordinances plan. that are affected by this law. And within that law change, it's not just taking them and renumbering them and giving them a 160D instead of 160A. There are changes within those regulations and additions. So it's gonna take, it's gonna take a good while to go through all your ordinances to do this. And we have approximately 10 months to take care of this.
Do they have a template?
No. They sure do not.
Well, if you don't do it, 10 months,
Well, you're not, you're in violation of state law if you do so. And if you try to enforce your zoning on someone or issue a permit or deny a permit, then the developer can sue you, and you're not in compliance. So guess who's gonna win? And let me tell you what one big change in this new law is if he sues you and you lose, this new law requires mandatory attorney payments. You will pay his law fees.
The developer or whoever's petition.
Yes, sir.
Do we need volunteer typists?
I wish that it was just a matter of typing it, but it's gonna be a matter of going through
So it's gonna be,
everything.
we're gonna have meetings monthly at least.
Well, I believe,
Do all this.
We're already having to.
well, the problem is we can't, we have fell into a situation. I'm almost through rewriting your zoning ordinance. And I'm working with the planning board. They're reviewing it and making they're making recommendations of any changes they feel like need to be made, and we're in that process. We are very close to the time period, and when I say very close, I'm saying probably within the next couple of months, bringing it to this board. But these changes are not just about zoning. These are about, like I said, all your ordinances. And so it's a completely separate beast from what the board is doing right now. So I wanted to bring this to you, and I wanted to tell you that, and explain to you that this will be a massive undertaking, and to develop the necessary amendments to conform Ramseur's development ordinances to this new law will require the assistance of our attorney. And I have discussed it with Mr. Will Hoyt, and he and I will be working on a presentation to bring back to this board. And what I'm hearing from David Owens, he explained to the audience that day that the Piedmont Triad Regional Council to assist some government, as I know that you're aware, because you asked for them to rewrite your zoning for you, and they quoted you a pretty good high figure, but it was a lot lower than what a lot of these large consulting firms would have charged you. But they have been really strong with the number of people that are going to be, or the number of communities that are going to be asking for their assistance. And they're scrambling, trying to come up with a way to help as many as they can. But, and of course, there are large firms that such as Benchmark. I believe Tim, I think you know the name when I say that. You've been around here to know that they are a private consulting firm also. They work on it. So, In Focus is another one. Mr. Will Hoyt and I are going to try to work on this and bring something and give you a presentation of what we think that we can do for you. But I encourage the town, if you would like, you're more than welcome to contact some of these large firms and ask for some informal bids on what they think the job will cost. So, but I'm just giving you a heads up that this is coming, and there's not anything, you're gonna have to comply. So,
Thank you, Jim.
thank you.
Next, special event fireworks, Denver.
Good evening, Commissioners and Madam Mayor. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Sandra Bullen, and I'm here tonight on behalf of the Ramseur Eastern Randolph Area Chamber of Commerce, and I thank you all for your time and your attention. A few weeks ago, the Chamber was approached by Teresa Canoy, who owns Harvest House. And I was not aware, but for a number of years, I think she said 13 or 15 years or so, she's been doing a privately funded fireworks show for the community, providing free food. And over the years, that event has grown exponentially. And she said last year she thought it was around 1,000 people that came. Some years back, it had gotten so big that she gave the food part of it to an area church, and they were doing that. So it had gotten so big, and she has another commitment this July. She approached the chamber and wanted to know if we would like to take on the responsibility of hosting that for Ramseur and surrounding community. And of course, we said yes, because it's something that we felt like would be just a wonderful opportunity for us here. And I'm unaware of another one in the county. There may be, okay, okay, all right. But I think it would be a wonderful opportunity for us, and perhaps in conjunction with a small little downtown festival. So when I started checking into this, the first thing I realized was you ain't in Kansas anymore. You can't just do a fireworks display. This is a federal thing. So I started checking on permits, and the first thing I noticed was, or the quotes I got was, to do a 30 to a 45-minute show, which is what Teresa had been doing. We're talking $7,000 to $8,000, $10,000. You have to have a licensed artificier, a pyrotechnic technician, licensed by the state. And you are not allowed to purchase or transport even consumer-grade fireworks unless you've got DOT clearance and hazmat. Well, I don't have that. And so I began to look around, and I've been in contact with a Mr. Jeff Hale out of Lexington. He is an artificier. He runs a pyrotechnic school. He is licensed not only in the state, but nationally to do fireworks shows. And he came down, I met with him last Friday, and we had one site in mind for it, and he looked it over, and with a rangefinder, he determined it was not big enough. You have to have a 150-foot radius per 1-inch cone of fireworks that you mean to discharge. The site that we had thought about did not meet that requirement. So we went then down to Leonard Park, and I gave each one of you a picture, GIS copy of Leonard Park. And the location that he felt like would be ideal is down on the lower part. There's a little teardrop area of gravel down there. That's a lower elevation. That meets the setbacks from housing, from trees, from telephone poles and electric wires. It meets all those setbacks, as well as having a flow of traffic for emergency vehicles. So he felt like that would be ideal. I talked with him, and he does have one crate or container of consumer-grade fireworks that he said he hates to see get gone, because he's got a back order for 6 months from Wunan province. They don't even know when they'll get to work on that because of the coronavirus, shutdown. So I'd hate to see these get gone. He's willing to sell us wholesale what we need, store and transport. He's willing to assist in finding a technician. I explained to him that the chamber will supply general liability insurance, as well as getting special rider for a pyrotechnic event. We will petition Commissioner Parrish to assist us with fire and police and emergency services on that day. We already have food lined up for that event, and I asked him what he thought he could do with that, and he thought for a minute, and he said he can do what I want, give me 180 feet elevation going, and that's a good distance to go up, 180, 200, $27.50. And we already have pledges in the amount of a little over $2,600. So we feel like this is something that we can achieve. Our one obstacle remains finding a technician. He has guys, but everybody he has that regularly does this is booked. He's going to help us find somebody, and they will be fully certified. He's going to get all permits from Raleigh and county, and basically all we have to do is show up and have a good time. And I'm here tonight just seeking your approval and your ongoing cooperation for this event. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them or find the answer if I don't have it.
Date on that bidding?
July 4th.
Saturday.
Yes, it is. We had talked about a little mini festival downtown with the possibility of vendors. I do have one commitment for a 3-stage food truck that will cover all areas of food. We have some music lined up, and I think it has potential to be a really, really good time. And probably everyone that had gone to Teresa will come to this, so it's a good turnout. It's a big, good chance of some offshoot revenue for the town.
Do you have any questions?
I would just like to say that I've seen this done in a lot of different towns, not just North Carolina, but there's a little town in Georgia called Ackworth. Reminds me a lot of Ramseur. They have a lake about the size of Ramseur's, and they do something like this every year, and it brings the people out. I've been to Teresa's personally, because we've lived here. It's a great event. There's a lot of turnout. I think it would be good for the town. So I'm glad that you guys decided to work with her and do that.
I think not only for people coming in, but for the neighborhood behind Brooklyn. Those kids will be able to just sit on their porch. And, it's a good family type entertainment event. So I hope that we can gain your approval to use Leonard Park, and I will keep you in the loop as everything Mr. Hale does. We'll be glad to come and speak with you and show you permits and that sort of thing.
Entertain a motion to allow her to use Leonard Park.
I make that a motion.
Okay.
So the first and the second to allow the Ramseur Eastern Randolph Chamber of Commerce to use Leonard Park for a fireworks display. Any discussion? All in favor?
Thank you.
Fall Festival?
As you know, the Fall Festival is around the corner, and it's a year-long plan to get the festival, to be a festival. I've already had people calling. Last week I had 10 calls for applications. What I'm requesting is, on that application, we charge $40 for 10 space, which is pretty reasonable, actually really reasonable. But we also charge a fee of $50 per power. From years past, I know the power bill has not been that much. And I feel like the power at $50 is a little excessive. And I am requesting the town lower that rate to $25 per vendor that wants power, which we're limited to so many, but my request is to limit that, lower that fee down to $25 to make it more reasonable for some of the vendors. The festival is another event that brings in a lot of people to town. They stop at our restaurants, they stop at our gas stations, and they spend money here. So to keep it growing and keep it going, I'd like to request that.
I'm making that motion.
I'm making that a motion.
So we have a motion to reduce the power rate for the Fall Festival to $25. Is there a second? First and second, any discussion? All in favor? Ramseur School Choice Week proclamation. I believe this was on the, our last meeting. Have you all had a chance to look at that? There was some concern about the proclamation taking funding from the public schools.
I don't necessarily know if the proclamation takes money from public schools, but the program itself has historically been known to take money away from public schools and dump it into more charter, private, school type education. I just think it gets very political, like this is something that can actually get very political, and I think as a municipality, we should try to stay away from politics.
Does anyone else have an opinion? Just let that one go. Ramseur Ministerial Association Day. Have you had an opportunity to look at that email? Just to refresh, the Civitans have asked the town board to proclaim February 26, 2020 as Ramseur Ministerial Association Day. The Ramseur Area Civitan Club is having breakfast for them at the Silver Spoon and would like to give them this written proclamation. It would be great if the mayor or one of the board members could help be in attendance to present. He did not give me any language on that, so he's just asking the board to proclaim it. I think they are going to develop a certificate. So I guess what we need to know is if we want to co-sponsor that event. Unless you come and you have to pay for your breakfast.
Okay.
He's our class treasurer.
Just making sure.
I'd like to make a motion that we consider February 26, 2020 as Ramseur Ministerial Association Day.
Second.
Second.
First and second, any more discussion? All in favor? When will you respond to Mr. Kraft on that? Thank you. Regular meeting time change. It's been discussed to change the meeting time to 6 o'clock. I've cleared my schedule, but I'm going to encourage you to move it to 6:30 to allow the board time to review the paperwork that might be put in front of them before we start the meeting. It's your pleasure on that.
The only concern that's been brought to me personally is that the Randolph County Board meet at 6 on the same day as we do. Jim and I have talked a little bit about that. I don't know if we want to send a representative. If we got something going on, I'm sure that we could make an exception. Send somebody to the Randolph County Board meeting. But if not, I mean, I'm okay with it. I think it would give them a little bit of a break, having to be here all day and then, having to hang around for, 2.5, 3 hours after work and then onward. 9 o'clock now.
I'll make a motion that we change our meeting time to 6:30 for the meeting.
For a second.
I'll second.
First and second, any discussion? All in favor? Meeting time will now be changed to 6:30, and that's noted on the public hearings also. Water and Sewer Public Works, Commissioner McIntyre.
Okay, right now I have about 1,200 electronic meters. I've got 360 I'm working on. They're under warranty. But the warranty period was only like 10 years, or 8 years old. I don't know whether I'll get these meters fixed, repaired. But if we keep having a problem like that, we might best go back to reading meters like we used to.
When that meter reader fails, what happens?
You just can't read the meter. You can still actually physically read the meter. It won't pick up electronic. You can't ride by and read it. I mean, you can still physically read the meter.
Right.
The meter reading is still correct. But the machine is not picking it up.
So what happens is there's a meter that sends a signal and
Well,
goes back
these
to,
meters are not sending signals out, 360 not sending signals out.
if they're working properly, they send a signal which
Yeah.
comes back to a computer in the
Back to the
office,
computer, yeah.
which is hooked up to our software.
Right.
And when this meter fails,
But, you know, they're still their warranty for 8 years, or 10 years. It's 360 on that,
the Suez is now having to go out and read the meters back in. Now, how many other ones are there?
Like 1,200 on the other. I right mark about
It's
1,200.
like 1283.
1283, thereabouts, yeah.
And how expensive are those meters?
Well, the meters we replace will be about $200 a piece. The
So-
heads are about $200, about $150.
So best case, in another couple of years, you're gonna have to replace the others.
That's probably right, yeah. I might just pay to go back and read them old ways like we used to. I'm asking, just throwing that out.
When are they coming out to replace the,
The meter head's not been shipped yet. It's gonna take a while to change 360.
it also causes problems when,
Causing problems and it's causing problems, it's causing problems all the way throughout the whole system.
which causes the office staff to,
And it's taking, like this week, they want 5 days to read the meters, so that's, it's taking over 2 days, 2.5 days now. Even by handheld. We're spending fourth of the time reading meters, that's just too much. And we're studying next month, but it continues on it, when we go back all the way.
anything else?
Well, also got I pulled a pump, entire component, I've got a pump that went bad up there. That pump was put in 2004. We got a price on that.
Anything else? Water, police and fire?
Start with the fire department. In front of you, there's some paperwork I put out tonight. We have an opportunity for a grant for the fire department. This is a matching grant for the fire department through the volunteer fire department fund. It's funded by tax paid by North Carolina Licensed Insurance Company on property insurance from their gross premium. Our fire department is looking at putting in for this grant. You'll see listed on the front what they're looking at buying. Our matching, if I'm right on this, our total cost will come out of next year's budget, somewhere in August, September. And our cost would be $13,750. We're looking at a total grant of $27,500, but our cost would be $13,750. As you can see, they're needing, this is some of the equipment they are needing. That's coming up. A lot of the equipment's old. We're going to be looking at replacing a lot of equipment in the next few years. So this would tremendously help if we could get this grant. I'd like the board's approval to allow the fire department to go ahead and submit for this grant. Even if we're approved and something happens, we can't do it. But I'd like for us to do that. That's a lot of money to turn down and not do it.
And so you wanna put this on next year's budget, but you wanna apply for the grant now?
Yes, I want approval to apply for a grant for next year's deadline's March 1st on that. Jay, you have anything to add on that?
That's pretty much good. Deadline for application March 1st, get application May 15th, and you can start the ordering process then. All your equipment payment and invoices have to be submitted in September. So any cost will come out next year's budget. Go ahead and come out then.
I believe if the newer equipment's purchased, when the insurance rating comes around and they see newer equipment, that'll probably help them.
Well, we've got, several six years ago, we replaced, now you can have any, internet gear, so it's 10 years old, and we've got new ones that are over.
to have that. You don't need to have one because of one. We need to be up to date somehow. We need to be up to date.
It's stuff we gotta have, we gotta have to buy it either way, we're gonna have to possibly buy a half process to do it this way.
I make a motion to go ahead and allow them through, to apply for this grant.
There's
I second.
first and second, any discussion? All in favor?
On the second page, this is some items they are needing now. As he said, we have a lot of turnout gear that's very, very old. And we're sending our firefighters into fires, house fires, and, with old equipment. So immediate needs for, turnout gear, you see that 3 sets of turnout gear, 3 pairs of boots, another pair of boots, and 3 helmets. Comes to a total of $8,190. That's something they need now. Also, you see repairs to engine 1, the siren box, if I'm correct, has gone out on that. They can't really run that without a siren. They can't run lights without siren. The siren box is $460. We're waiting on the quote for the replacement of the tank fill line. Also, the repair of 3 SBA and 2 SBA masks. They're waiting on a quote. All that right there is stuff that they're needing now. You'll see the medical order supply. I went ahead and told them today to go ahead and order that. For a total of all that is medical stuff that's went out of date today, if I'm correct. Some of it, or some of it didn't use.
Just go there, like,
So they're going ahead and order that. And on the second page, you'll see uniforms for new firefighters. We voted to hire a new firefighter. They're going ahead and ordering those. But basically, we're going to have to probably look at the budget very closely, but this is turnout gear. We need to find money to buy this and repair all these other items.
So looking at your budget, it looks like for, maintenance repairs for equipment, you currently have $3,133 in there. For building, you've got $5,171. And for trucks, you pretty much wiped your budget.
We are waiting on that other grant. Wynn sent all the paperwork in last Friday. We did get an email today that you did receive that paperwork. The only thing we wasn't able to send is the truck title. I called DOT last week and the guy pretty much told me he didn't know when it would be printed. He couldn't tell me when it would be printed, but we could see it in the line. So,
You've got also miscellaneous expense, $3,600.
Commissioner Parrish, don't forget, I think it was the fire department. Ms. Pam did the budget assessment on, and we're gonna meet on Monday, so she'll be able to tell you. Yeah,
I just wanted.
I think it was a good amount.
Yeah, I
She
think
kinda
it was-
moved some stuff around.
She moved it around, it was right much left.
Yeah,
In the budget, of what was gonna be left, I think it was right around 55,000.
we gotta have a computer.
Yeah, and I hadn't got the computer, we voted on that last month, I believe, to replace the computer. We're still trying to get quotes on the computer. A laptop is more expensive than a desktop, so we're working on quotes for that computer, so we're probably looking, I'm gonna say, at the high range of $1,500 for that computer. So we're looking at almost $10,000 that we need to come up with in the next month or so to get this equipment updated.
How do you decontaminate your gear? You got a washing machine or something to wash it?
Yeah, we have a washing machine, it's not the recommended method of doing it, with applying on a grant for an extractor, which is supposed to use, it helps clean the gear better, and it also makes a longer life out of it. We've got one now, it's a regular style, washer that actually got four gas to the deal on. And, we launder them that way as best we can, and it does a fairly decent job of just running gear, just mainly well, the extractor, you're talking probably $40,000 on the extractor.
You get a couple of washing machines.
Guess it depends on how far you want to shoot. That's one of the reasons the department don't live very long.
Jay, is it all right with, I get with Lynn and them on Monday to go over this and then let you know?
Oh, yeah.
And get back with the board, maybe within the next 30 days, next meeting, we can vote on all this.
Yeah, as soon as we can, that year, we're gonna do something on it, quick as we can, we're gonna do those to the firemen. Your figure out is like we're near a fire, much less in. They're out, one of the other ones is in, Rick's school now, you can't do a lot of burnout with, because the same rig gear.
Well, I'd like to make a motion contingent to what we find out Monday evening on the budget, if we can find the money. I'd like to,
I think you'll be
I
okay.
think we'll be okay. I'd like to go ahead and make a motion, we get these items. The turnout gears for sure, until we get the other quotes on the other stuff, we can wait on it. And the siren box, I'd like to go ahead and get that ordered. I'd like to make a motion contingent to what we can find on Monday, go ahead and get the turnout gears box. And the siren box.
Is there a second? First and second, any more discussion? All in favor?
I'll let you know next week.
Library and cemetery? I'm sorry, go ahead.
On the police department, a lot of computers in town are old. And they're having one issue with the computer that is very, very slow for our detective. And our detective has caseloads that he has on the computer, so they're wanting us to look at the police department to see if we can possibly get them one new computer this budget. We have in miscellaneous, it's, 28.99.33. We're looking at, I think the last one we ordered was $13.30. We're looking around $1,300 for a computer for the detective.
You want to take that out of miscellaneous?
I'll get with Larry and Aaron on that.
And we'll be discussing that.
And we'll be
budget on
discussing that Monday
yeah.
too, before we can find it. There's still other areas that I think will be all right. We just got one area that's negative there, or a couple areas, but we'll discuss that. I'd just like to make a motion to go ahead and approve this contingent to what we find on Monday with the anything.
Wants to purchase a desktop or a laptop?
It's a desktop, correct? It's a desktop.
I'll second the motion.
First and second, any discussion?
I'd just like to say, I'm 100% behind our public safety. That is one of your most important departments in the town. Our guys out here, our fire and police, are protecting over 1,700 citizens. They're also protecting all these visitors that come to our town. So it's very important we provide them with the tools that they need to do their job correctly and safely. And I'd just like to make that comment.
All in favor? Library and cemetery, Commissioner Cranford is not here. I don't know what he was going to report on for that, but I do know for the Community Hope Alliance, Chip Womack and Bob Armfield have reached out and requested the use of the meeting room on Tuesday, February 25th, for the Community Hope Alliance to meet here. And what they will be discussing is the drug epidemic. They will have several people here that have stories about how this drugs have affected their lives. I'm hoping all of you can come out and hear what has been going on and what they're doing. And that again is Tuesday, February 25th at 7 o'clock. Parks and Recreation.
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda. Okay, I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to let Mr. Steele come up and talk about, softball.
Softball. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Mr. Steele? Sorry you picked this meeting today.
here, I'd be working, for those who know who I am.
Please introduce yourself.
Okay, thanks for having me. I am Bobby Steele. I am a resident of Siler City and a property owner now here in the overlay of Ramseur, but my main purpose here today is I'm the one who actually used your softball field, baseball field last year for Faith Christian School girls softball. And my main purpose tonight is to see if we can redo that again this year. And I have been I have talked to Tanya. Oh, she is. I couldn't remember. You tell how much I pay attention, but anyway, I met you, but I couldn't remember. I was actually working that day too, and met her at the ball field. But stay in close contact with her like I did you last year, scheduling and that sort of thing. But I've got a list of things I can tell you, but is there any questions before? What would you guys need to know? Or
Did the field work good for you last year?
it did. It did.
Yeah. Points or anything we can do there?
I can tell you what I've done thus far.
Does the school insurance cover, y'all have a set policy that covers the activities?
The school has I guess it'd be a blanket policy for sports.
When they're using the field, you just inquire, see if they can add it now that they just matured. Field, if you don't mind. It works pretty well if they allow it to carry over.
And what I will do is I will do some research on that this week, and then maybe just do a separate binder for.
Just during the season. Yeah.
So what Mr. Steele did last year was he rented the field and we used it 3 days a week.
Technically 4, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday.
And used the field right after school and was generally done by the time our baseball teams played.
Kind of give you an idea of the way the scheduling would be this year, and that's what those would work with. We're typically over halfway through by the time the Park and Rec sporting, baseball or softball takes place. I think last year you only had one team, a little t-ball team, and we saw them a few times as we were leaving, but our main thing is games. I don't think we had maybe 2 or 4 home games here last year. This year I am currently at 6 home games, and with a possibility of 8. And we haven't quite completed our schedule yet, which will be done by mid-February. But those games, typically high school, are 5 o'clock games. And it's for them trying to get out of school not too early to get here, because schools are traveling from Burlington or Lexington or different areas. But, so we would have 6 to 8 home games. It would be 5 o'clock, and they were typically over by 7. So that may interfere, depending on what your baseball practice schedule or game. Our game, we're complete by April 30th, May 1st area.
When does baseball start with their games?
First game is March 21st. We won't know until March 9th how many teams we have, what the schedule is. When are your games played? What day of the week?
Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, or Fridays. And I've got, like right now, I do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 home games scheduled.
Are any of them on Fridays?
Friday, okay, March 17th, 19th. No. March 23rd, 24th. No. March 31st, and no. And then April 30th. No.
Because I know that we'll be utilizing for baseball on Friday nights, possibly.
And see,
Saturday during the day.
We have also scheduled plus or minus 9 away games. And those 9 away games means we won't be here at all. 9, and then of course we have that Christian School does an ATAP, a dinner show, which 2 days that week we won't practice, we won't do anything. It has spring break the weekend of March 8th through March 5th. it's a week and 2 days, no practice, no games. That's why I say I could coordinate with you with what I have and.
Yeah, cause that's just the hard part about this, is we just don't know until March, but,
Technically, our first game, hadn't confirmed yet, but it would be March 2nd. And that will be actually a home game after Ramseur.
can you tell me which games that you have for sure that are scheduled for currently?
Let's go with March 2nd,
Okay.
March 17, 19, March 23, 24, March 31st, and April 30th.
And that you would need to fill from 5 to 7.
Yes. And I could actually give you, there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 other days that we possibly may use it. We've got 3 or 4 teams that they haven't completed their softball schedules yet. So the public schools we play, theirs are already ready, but when you play the private schools, which is kind of like we are, they wait till this week to schedule the game. Most of them have their meetings this week.
What'd you say that April date was?
April the 30th.
Okay, it just jumped really, like, slow down, so.
Yeah, we have a lot of away games, April 6, 7, 14, 16, 21. A lot of home in March, and I'm trying to schedule to where before you guys play, we're through with the home game and all the way.
Yeah, like I said, their games don't start till March 21st. Now, how much, is there a, two things, is there a fee schedule as far as how much we charge?
Last year, I think we charged $15 a week, and Mr. Steele helped maintain the bill.
A lot of things that I do, for y'all who know me, I know some of them, but for y'all know me, I'm a worker, and I don't know, the time I get up to the time I go to bed is just work, and I'm not a moocher. I'm not asking for, give me anything. Actually, I would give you more than you give me, I guarantee you. Just look for, last year, but this year already, and I know it's not a brag or a boast, it's just, I usually go, when I do something, I do it 110%, where it was, but we did order, we might have a little bit of confusion there, but we did order 18 ton of brick dust. I haven't got the invoice yet, but he was supposed to send it to me. I'm assuming you guys have not.
We don't have any.
Yeah, it was, S&W, which is Robbie, and he lives here in the area, S&W Grading.
He's done some work for the town.
Yeah, but anyway, he's the one that hauled the load, and, I don't beg people for invoices. I'm sure he'll eventually send it, but did he send it here?
I haven't seen it, just
Okay.
as the person over Parks and Rec, I haven't seen it.
But anyway, if it's an issue, we'll resolve that, but, what we've done thus far is, I put out ryegrass, 100 pounds of ryegrass, no charge to us, City of Ramseur, removed all the infield grass, and all this is no charge. If you ride out to the baseball field and go straight in, you'll see a pretty good pile of, grass in the wood area there. It looks like it, over time, that's where we put the debris or different things. We actually went out and realigned, the bases aren't in there right, they weren't little stops or, we actually, stringlined that in. Now everything is 90 degrees, 50 feet, which is, red. Not only is the high school girls softball, but it's red, 60 feet. And then, we did put the brick dust down. It needs dragging right now, but it is laid in there. None of this, and I'm not charging you family. What I'm getting is you'll get more money's worth out of me because we have the equipment, we have the means to do it. I said something to, am I saying right, Tanya? About painting the building. You can get 2 or 3 quotes, and I can go ahead and tell you now that we would do it for just the labor, $800, material, the labor for $1,500, painting the building and the dugout. It's something to help. Basically, we try to do what it costs. The materials and the labor it costs. It's not, you'd be getting a $16 an hour guy versus a painting company. something to, I'm not here to seek work, it's something that comes back later.
Now, what about your practice schedules?
3:30 to 5. And also, in that, if something come up, there was a game, and you guys, most of the time in rec, you don't even start at 6 o'clock. But if there's something that came up, you know, practice, once the game starts, if I can get all the games that I want, once the season starts, there will be probably no practice. And we'll have 18 to 20 games scheduled. And looking at the schedule, if we could get together, I can show you that we wouldn't be good very much at all except for home games. Last year we only got 9 games in just because we wanted there to remember the rain. It's all everybody could get conference games in.
Yeah, there's a lot less.
It rained more. So.
So I guess we just need to approve. I mean, is there a contract that we use?
I don't think we used a contract last year, I think the first just,
Tell me to go, I'll come up here and pay you whatever it was, $135, or I don't know what it was, but it was, she gave me a set of keys and.
I think there definitely needs to be a contract. With anything that we do, there needs to be a contract. So would we need to get that contract together first and vote on that, or what?
You know, you approve this position. You can start when?
Practice technically, April 24th.
I think last year we just did a motion that carried in those minutes. Is that what we did last year?
We can put together.
Whole contract?
Yeah, I'm not doing it without a contract.
I 100% agree, 100%. Simple, it's okay, she needs some kind of contract with it.
Now, do y'all run y'all's own concession too?
We did in the past, and I think somebody asked me about, I don't know if it was from here or about doing it. We don't mind, we just, I say it's not,
Would
for
it
me,
be
it's not about.
possible for the town to do concessions?
I would love for the town to do concessions.
At the ball games?
Yeah.
I make a motion to approve for Faith Christian softball team to use our fields at Leonard Park with a contingency that the contract is written up and signed and the insurance is provided. That has to be done before.
Second?
Second motion.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
And thank you for the work that you've done out there.
No problem. Much more to come.
Okay, that was it, reminders and announcements.
Oh, wait, I've got more.
Oops, I'm sorry. Well, we got down to that.
So since I guess since he's already came up here, I'll go ahead and go and then we'll let Randy go. Since we're already talking about baseball, I'll go into that first and then I want to talk about the lake and rack, okay? With baseball, we need to approve a registration fee. The signups for baseball start tomorrow. So I know this is a little, last minute, but I wanted to allow the board to have the opportunity to approve these registration fees. I will be here first thing in the morning printing off flyers. I've already talked to several businesses in the area about advertising. Just so everybody knows, Ramseur is having baseball. I think it's floating around that we're not. But we are. We're not gonna have softball this year. We're gonna try to maybe incorporate that in next year. But baseball signups are gonna be at the town hall from 6 to 8 on Tuesdays for the month of February, and from 4 to 6 on Saturdays at town hall for the month of February. Okay? If you guys know any little kids, girls or boys that want to play, ages 4 to 12, have them come sign up. But we need to make a motion for the registration fees. Everybody in the county, I had a meeting with them a couple weeks back. The cheapest is $65. Franklinville's charging $65. They charge the $55 early sign-up fee. This was not already prepared, therefore we can't, we couldn't just transition into it this year. So we have no money in the budget to pay for the insurance. I confirmed that with Pam, so that's something that'll have to be covered in the registration fees. Uniforms will need to be covered in the registration fees. League fees will need to be covered in the registration fees. That's just the minimum. Okay, each league has different fees. So I personally make a motion that we approve a $65 registration fee for baseball.
There's a second. First and second, any discussion?
I do know, a lot of people discuss about kids not being able to afford it. We've had a lot of community members contact us and are willing to sponsor a child, so put the word out that if there's a parent that absolutely cannot afford it, to let family know. And we'll get with those citizens that are willing to sponsor a child.
Anyone else? All in favor?
The next thing I want to talk about is just to let y'all guys know that I'm in the process of getting bids on uniform costs, equipment costs, and sponsorships, as we talked about. I do know that we're going to need a portable pitching mound if we really want to utilize those fields for baseball. 12U and 10U uses that. It used to be whenever I was playing ball, 15, 20 years ago. The pitching mounds used to have some slant to them. They used to go up into an actual mound. Our top field does not have that. It's flat, so it accommodates softball, it accommodates t-ball, it accommodates all ball, basically up to 10U, 12U. So if we're going to be able to, if we're going to be able to hold those games, we're going to have that. Those are anywhere between $1,000 and $1,400. So that's not anything that we're voting on right now. I'm just letting you know that I'm looking into that. I'm also going to be having the concessions. We're going to be cleaning that up, inventorying that. I'm proposing that I'm going to start working on this from 4:30 to 6 p.m. on Saturdays throughout the month of February. So if anybody wants to come help, there's a lot of work to be done over there from 4:30 to 6 p.m. Unless, go ahead.
I was gonna tell you, did you know that there was a mound out there already
Yeah, I don't know if it's,
behind the fence?
yeah, I don't know if it's,
There's something been there for 10 years.
I think it's maybe the one that Jim
Yeah, it's
and
been
them
there,
got.
it's probably been there 10 or 12 years.
Unfortunately, it's been left outside, and
You
those are.
probably already know this if you don't take it in and out.
Mhm.
But
Yeah. And,
Right.
that's kind of what's happened to a lot of our equipment, and we can't continue to allow that to happen. So I'm just gonna be looking into that, and then, also, I might have somebody building a sign for us to advertise this stuff, so we don't have to buy banners. Maybe, look into it. Kinda like the fall festival sign, so that it's made out of wood, we can set it up, we can change our numbers on it. I got it in the works, maybe. But that's a way to help us advertise for our athletic department. Since talking about this, let's go ahead and talk about the advisory committee. I'm taking applications for the advisory committee through February 28th. We want to try to fill some of those seats. However, I do want to make a motion tonight because of some situations that I've been dealing with personally, that I think it's in the best interest of the town to protect the town if we make an amendment to the ordinance to only allow individuals and business owners that are located within the Ramseur School District to apply to be leads on RAC. So I'm going to make that motion.
So we have a motion on the floor that to change the Recreation Advisory Council ordinance to only allow people that live or have business in the Ramseur School District, the zip code 27316.
Yeah, just the
School
school
district.
district. Not necessarily, because Coleridge is 27316.
Okay.
So just the Ramseur School District. You own a business, not rent it, own it. And if you're an individual that lives within the Ramseur School District.
I'll make a second to that.
First and second, any discussion? All in favor? Motion carried.
Last thing I want to talk about is the lake. At our advisory meeting that we had for the first quarter, Sandra kind of filled me in on some stuff that's been going on at the lake that I was unaware of, that we desperately need to have taken care of. I'm gonna be having a meeting with Gwen and Pam as well, just to kind of iron out where my budget is and how much we have for what areas. But I know one thing, and I was gonna get with you, Jim, maybe you could assist, maybe public works on this, is we need to remove the, I don't know if I'm saying it wrong, aerators that are chained to the bottom of the lake. They haven't been serviced, and these things have batteries in them. So if they explode, that's not good, because that goes in the hard water supply. So Sandra said that Ashran stated that they would cut them out and do it for free as a training exercise. And that we should be able to store these in the public works facility until we find a proper way to dispose of them. But I'll get with them on that. Has that already been passed? Is that what you had told me?
It was brought up last year, and if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Wilhoit, did they not move and approve to surplus those already last year? And it was brought up in like August or something. There was a number of surplus materials, and it did come before the board. I believe it passed, but sale was never done.
Well, we couldn't get them out of the lake. So.
Yeah.
The problem was getting them out of the lake, and I think there was many different discussions from getting them cut free to hooking them up to a tow truck and pulling them out. So I believe we agreed to get the aerators out, and we were doing some research on how to get them out.
So we'll get with Ashran and see if we can get that done. Also, I was informed that anywhere between 40 and 50% of the wood on the piers are rotten or in disrepair. They need to be replaced. That is a liability. You do not want people walking out there on a pier that's going to fall or has the potential to fall. So we need to look into quotes and material costs to repair that. And I feel like Public Works should assist on that, but they don't. And then is there, and correct me if I'm wrong, is there an ordinance that states we cannot allow shoreline fishing?
I don't know if it's an ordinance. I think it's just a rule.
Well, if we need to look into that, because I wanna change that to allow for shoreline fishing, especially for kids. The Eagle Scouts, Sandra said that the Eagle Scouts would be willing to make some benches out there for us, so it wouldn't cost the town anything, but it would allow children to access the lake more freely, and we might have some more people come out. There's only a few piers out there, and we don't want them overloaded. So we need to look into that. The water weeds around the lake, they're an issue. They need to be taken care of. If they're not, they're just gonna eventually take over. So there is a guy from Raleigh that's certified to do that. That's gonna cost some money though, that we don't have in the budget this year. That's something that we may have to look at budgeting in next year, in the next fiscal year, but, is this something that Public Works?
Well, we used to take the back over and dig them out.
Do you think they still do that?
I would hope to.
And we're also gonna be looking into maintenance of the warden's office, because I've been told that there's some fallen boards that need to be taken care of. And I haven't been over there to see exactly how much repairs are needed, but that is something that we definitely need to work into budgeting next year. we've got to take care of our stuff. We can't let it go. It would be like having a car and not servicing it. You've got to take care of what you have. So we need to start doing that. Also, we're still taking applications for the lake warden job through February 15th. If you know anybody interested, have them submit application, town hall. And I'm going to be working with Gwen and Pam on a process for collecting and tracking money that's received into the lake as far as revenue goes, so that we can accurately track.
That's all I have. We also had surplus materials in fencing and John boats. We have 4 John boats that were declared surplus, and approximately 230 linear feet of split rail fencing. Now, not all of that was taken up is usable, a lot of it's rotted. But if we could move forward with the sale of those things, it could generate some income for something else. Do we have to sell all the surplus together, or can you split it?
They can do it any way they want to set it out. You want to make sure it's being sold as is. A lot of times you just sell the whole lot so you can get rid of the good end of that.
You do that by a formal bid, or, I hate to
Just
bring it up
advertise
to
it,
you.
post it, advertise it.
Yeah.
Follow the
Those
statute.
batteries will bring a lot of money up there.
There's a statute.
Big
There's a
battery, big
statute.
battery.
If we sell them as is, they have to get them out of the world.
Somebody, yeah.
Each aerator has 4 solar panels on it as
Right,
well.
whole solar panels, yeah. Big batteries, too.
So we'll look into that. Thank you, Sandra, for pointing that out. Okay.
The biggest thing I got, we've met with, Randolph County Deeper Rail Trail folks for signage Friday, and they're gonna get back with us on they're gonna draw it out and get back with us, and we're gonna approve those. And I think the biggest sign is gonna be a 42 to 48. Gonna be marking the rail trail out on 64. And also gonna have signs down there on phase 2 of the rail trail, also leading people from, or getting people here to the parking lot, municipal parking lot, and also from the phase 2 of the rail trail down there. So we're all watching for that, because that's something coming up. Also on our concert series, we talked with the advisory council the other night, and what we've kind of run through our thoughts for the concert series is this year we've got a lot of new events that's coming up downtown. One of them is the beer festival, or the beer garden,
Trap festival.
it could be a beer festival. We want to supply a band for that day, and also, I know the chamber is working on July the 4th, to talk about what sponsoring a band for that day. And also, we have discussed the possibilities of having a bluegrass festival here. We first thought about Winter Park, but we had a meeting Saturday, and we kind of moved that to downtown. Our thoughts was to sponsor more stuff downtown, and that would be a part of the concert series also that we working on, and we want to make that a day event for the bluegrass festival downtown. And we hope to call it like a bluegrass summer kickoff. We get the summer started right. And we're going to be working on that. We're going to look for sponsors for that. But tonight I want to make a motion for the board to approve that we do that on May 30th. From it'd be from like 6 p.m. 10 to 6. And what we'd like to do is use maybe some flatbed trailers to set up some stages downtown. Right now we're thinking 2, one for the main event stage that will have your main event singers, and also we have a different stage for newcomers or open mic stage. So I'd like to get the board to wait on having that May 30th.
Are you wanting to shut down Main Street?
Yes, ma'am.
So Main Street from where to?
Main Street to Carter Street, from 22 to Carter Street, Forward Road to Carter Street.
So the other side of Carter Street would be open?
Yes, ma'am.
We have a motion on the floor to, allow for a bluegrass festival on May 30th from 10 to 6 and close Main Street from Carter Street to Highway 22 and Liberty Street to Highway 22. Have a second on that?
I'll start that motion.
First and second, any more discussion? All in favor? All right.
Why don't we petition DOT to get that road back? We can petition DOT. Get Main Street.
I think that was the thought process.
Thought process after the paving,
After they had paid
right,
all that.
yeah.
I just don't think it was ever done or.
I've never done it, but we could do that.
What's the timeframe on, preparing and sending the portion to them and their approval?
I have no idea, I'll check into that.
Anything else? Okay, announcements, we have a planning and zoning meeting on the third Monday at 6 p.m. Parks and Recreation Quarterly Advisory Council will be the third Monday in April at 7 p.m. And Planning and Zoning has a February 5th workshop meeting. What time is that?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. At this time, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session for the purposes of personnel.
I make a motion to go into closed session.
Second.
First and second, any discussion? All in favor?